it was like the teaching was so clear to me that I really struggled when people were telling me stories. I could hear them.
Yeah.
And it made me really aware that what they're saying is not authentic. It's not coming from a true place. And so even now, when people challenge me, and this is a problem because then you can't hold me to account for anything, because it may be true, they just don't have the skill to say it without the story.
Welcome back to another episode of Grind, Hustle, Repeat, conversations around creativity and culture. I'm your host, Neodate Evans, and this is the show where we talk to creative entrepreneurs about their creative journeys, the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And hopefully by sharing, it provides guidance to you. And if you like the sound of that, then please feel free to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button for new videos. Now, my guest today started out in advertising over quite a few years ago, actually. But he spent over 10 years in the industry. He also founded the hugely successful Sunday Show, helping artists such as Drake and Ed Sheeran get their first shows in London. Fast forward to Father's Day 2018, and a text sent to some dads, just wishing them a happy Father's Day, became the basis of the formation of an organization that is now actively changing lives in Black communities worldwide. My guest today on Grind, Hustle, Repeat is Marvyn Harrison, founder of Dope Black Dads. What's going on, bro?
What's going on, man? Who are you talking about just then? I'm not familiar with any of those things.
I'm not even sure. I just get someone to send me some stuff and then I just read it and I'm like, was this Marvyn really?
Because I've known Marvyn since he was 19 years old. I'm not present to any of these things.
You know what's crazy is sometimes you forget how long you've known somebody. So you just saying 19, I'm like
17 years, bro.
It's a long time. By the time this show goes out, it's gonna be like the last week of December. So the end of 2020. How has 2020 been for you?
It's been the best year of my life, you know.
Why?
In many ways.
I'm actually really excited to hear that because I feel it's been awkward because I've had a good 2020 and I'm in this space where I felt bad about saying that I've had a good 2020. So tell me about yours.
I think if I separate the idea of like what happened versus who I am now, like who I am now versus last year is a completely different level of machine. So I'm over the moon. I feel like I've proven to myself that all the skills that I've been developing for the last 20 years actually work. they're my faculties are all together. I've managed to maintain most of my values, all of my integrity. I'm here. I've remained loving more than I could, historically would have. When I created those values about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, like I was really nervous because I was like, I have to remain loving at all times. It's like, that's not what they teach you in Hackney. In Hackney, that's not what it's about. And then when you put it into practice, even the moments where you're not, like I can reestablish them really quickly. I can accept that I haven't been loving, and I can reestablish my integrity with that person. Being authentic, I think I've been very authentic all year. I've said how I felt. I've shared really powerfully throughout the year. The latest one, which came in like the summer, was about being powerful, and that I feel like I've had a powerful year. I launched my new business 3 months ago. I turned Dope Black into a CIC this year, and I'm chief executive for 2 organizations at the same time. Plus, I have a whole bunch of stuff that I do just for myself. So, in many ways, this year has been the test of all the errors that I made in my late 20s, early 30s, figuring it out, and then it all coming together into one way of being for everything I do. So in all those ways, incredibly successful. Like Beloved is, as a company, is the first time I've actually sat there and been like, I have a company. Like I do it every couple of like days when another client comes on board or we're like really helping people. I'm like, I have a company. Because before I had a skill that I would monetize, and there wasn't anything under the hood. It was just me being paid to do stuff, which is great, by the way. But when you have a company and you have employees and you have an operational system, you have a unique product, you have a selling point, you have a, you know, ROI targets, and you're actually hitting your targets, you're like, oh, this is very different to pay Marvyn to do something and he does it. And so I think it's just been a really beautiful year in that sense. And my children have, you know, from a human point of view, my children, you know, they're people that I never even thought I could create. Like I never believed I could create human beings that good. So I take all the credit. Nina didn't do anything. It was all me.
This is what I tell people.
Mothers get all the credit all the time. Do they need any more? Do they need a
listen, I'm out here doing the work. I'm raising these boys. Like, obviously mum does her thing, but you know.
She turns up, she does a few things, you know, she cares a little bit. But
give me my props. Give me my props.
I do think men, and this is a part of Dope Black Dads, like we don't practice this in the group. We don't like turn around and be like, men are this and women are this. But as we're outside of the group, I can say this. I do think men get shitted on as male parents. We're completely like seconded in every single way. We're not centered in it. And then when we try to center ourselves, we get told that it's not the right way to do it. And it's just like, Will Smith said something really interesting. If you listen to his Father's Day, him and Jada podcast, which is actually really emotional. He was talking about his own dad, but in his reference point, he made a comment which he said that they're going to kill me for this, but like mothers have to let dads parent in their own way, and don't correct them, don't hover over them, don't leave your like, just leave it.
I've had some crazy conversations with mothers who they're not with the dad, but also are reluctant to allow the dad to father because they feel that they'll mess it up, or they don't know what they're doing, or the child will feel uncomfortable. And it's weird because I've always felt, and again, this probably maybe something I could get shot for, but I've never liked the idea on mums having a monopoly over parenting. Like, whatever you're gonna do for our child, I will also do that, bar the physical restraints that I have as a man. And so this whole thing of, I don't know, like a father almost having to ask permission to do stuff. It's alien.
Parent his own children that he created.
I
appreciate we don't carry them, we don't birth them, which is really huge stuff. But we did 7 minutes of our best work and we created humanity. And now that we're here, seven is enough. If you're doing more than that at 40, you're just on the next thing, bro. 7 minutes is appropriate. If you know what you did, it's all you need. If you don't know what you're doing, then you got to do other stuff.
I think the other stuff, if you're doing it well enough, it masks the stuff in the middle.
It's a smart thing to do. Everyone, you got to know you got to warm the car up. You leave the engine on for 20 minutes.
There you go. I appreciate that.
It's science.
It is what it. I think.
Do you know what it was? Yeah, there's a book called Vagina, by the way. And it's really funny because it was in my house, and people would come to my house and just see it on the shelf and be like, "Oh, you two must be." It's just like, no, I just accepted that I don't know anything. It's like I don't know anything. I learned about. By the way, it's not even vagina. By the way, it's vulva. So like learning even that 2 years ago blew my mind. I was like, "You're trying to say this is the vulva?" And that's the vagina. So I was like, okay, great. It's good to know what it is. So I thought, let me actually go find out what it is. And you find out some incredible things.
Yeah.
Really important if you actually would like to make it a pleasurable experience. It's a really important thing. I'm just throwing it out there. Everyone go and Google stuff.
You're right. Because on the flip side, you know, when it comes to sex, a lot of the time, we're not really thinking about dispensing pleasure. You know what I'm saying? It's like, let me get mine. And then I'm good. But yeah, if you want to know, you gotta learn.
Men are taught just to go in long, hard, and slightly left, and that's about it. That's the whole thing. That's the whole production. It's just like, do that, and she will love it. And then you're like, oh. And then you wonder why one day they're like, no, I'm not in the mood. It's like, oh, that's why.
That explains a lot.
It's not left anyways. It's just up. Sorry.
I was actually going to ask you, but you totally thrown me. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm sitting there thinking, is this really what I want to be talking about? But actually, I quite like this conversation.
Yeah, no, we're learning stuff. We did this on our last time when me and you did a podcast, bro. We went on the myriad of topics to the point that it ended up just being like, it was my favorite thing. I was like, we should just talk more often, but we think, never have time.
You know what? On a really selfish level, when I decided that I was going to do this, and then after doing them, I was like, this isn't me interviewing people or anything like that. I swear this is me. It's almost like it's therapy for me. This is me having conversations with people that I'm close with, people that I look up to, people that I respect, people that I admire, and just feeling good afterwards. I did Rickie just the other day, and in a normal year, he lives way, I don't cross the river for nothing. So in a normal year, we won't see each other that much. Everyone's always on the WhatsApp and whatnot have you. And then obviously this year being what it was. And so then I reached out to him. He's like, yeah, cool. And then we got on the Zoom. And the moment I sat here and then I'm looking at his face, and I think it's in the video, I'm just literally like, it's good to see your face, and it was just like, this is my long-term friend. It's not often that we just sit down, because men, we don't do that. If I call you, I'm calling for something.
Yeah. It's actionable.
Yeah, it's always transactional. Oh yeah, can you like, I know you love me, I love you, I know you've got my back and whatnot have you. We don't necessarily need to do the hour conversation, see how you are, but actually we do. And we had an hour of conversation, and at the end of it I said, look, I'm not even sure how this is going to translate by the time it goes out, because some people might just watch it thinking this is just two old men catching up. Yeah.
So like, how's it's just like, what's going on with the thing? Did you say extensions? Did you get approval? Yeah. It's just like
this is it. And I watched it back thinking, am I going to edit stuff out? And I'm like, no, it is what it is. But there were all, for me anyway, and I'm sure for people watching, there's always some gem that comes up in the conversation that you walk away with that you didn't know before, or you're like, actually, it's validating an idea that you had. And that's why, for me, doing this has been really, really helpful. Just speaking to people like you and Rickie and Franklin and Femi and whatnot have you. It's just been really good.
You asked me third, by the way. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, I've known you longest.
No, that's not how it happened. That's not how it happened.
So let me get this straight. You started a podcast, yeah. What's hilarious as well? When I started my podcast, I just came and got you, bro. But it's cool. When you started your podcast, you went to two other people, and then I had to actually say something to get invited onto the podcast that my really good friend is running. It's cool, man.
That's not how it happened, yeah. What happened was,
see the long pause of between the what happened was and the I, yeah? Tells me everything, bro. The thing is, yeah, if we were in love, yeah, all now I would have thrown a vase at your head.
Oh wait, you don't love me?
What I was trying to do, have you seen The Crown, by the way?
I've seen bits of it.
Basically, every time Prince Philip gets caught cheating, yeah, he just does what you just did. Just every time. Well, what I wanted to do, actually, it's just like, bro, you just know it.
It's big is the bits of The Crown that I've caught have just reinforced my apathy for the royal family. Like seeing, it's weird. I always knew Charles was older than Diana, but then actually hearing the numbers, thinking, actually, why are you talking to this woman at this age?
It's a madness, right?
It's a complete madness. And
but Queen Elizabeth is the only one that's a G. I haven't got to the part where I was going to say she kills Diana, but I can't say that. But I haven't got to the point where, to that part, but everything up to this point, she's a G.
She is the archetype of a matriarch of a family. Like,
yeah,
she was like, I will run this family. I
would want to be in that family in that case. I feel like if she
want
was
to be in the family, and you'd want to be in her good books.
Yeah, the food would be better, the chat would be better, there'll be more vibes. But other than that,
would the food really be better though?
If she was black, 1,000%. 1,000%. There'll be ackee and saltfish for sure.
No.
Sorry, I know this is again off front, but did you see the part where she danced with the African?
It doesn't matter. Go on.
You see when she danced with Nkrumah?
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Bro, the way with an African, they were like, she's dancing with an African. It's just like, it hurt my chest. I was like, I need a minute. I had to pause it.
It is. Those things are funny. This morning I had a call from a friend, and we were just chatting, and then we got onto racism, and then he said to me, he's like, "Do you think racism will ever change?" And then my answer was, I don't think it's a cyclogram, but it's that phrase of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward. And at the moment, I think we're in one of those steps backwards. But yeah, it's like you go back to Queen Elizabeth dancing with Kwame Nkrumah and people being upset by this. You fast forward how many years, and actually it's low key is still a problem for a lot of people. Like,
there's bare Liz's and Kwame's together now, bro. The divide has been lost. There's a Kwame and Liz in a city near you, bro, right now.
And you would think that because there are so many, that people would just be like, all right, it's happening. But it's the way that they still get triggered. The other day we had the Millwall fans doing their thing. And now I can't remember, I think it was Chelsea, they did something around the LGBT audience, and people were getting upset by that. And then you just think
rainbow laces.
That was it. And I'm not a football head. And you just think, when are we actually going to be able to get to a point when we look back and say, do you remember when people used to be like this?
I would say the reason why that I think we're getting such pushback so violently is because we've created an us and them culture within diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that's unworkable. That's where the challenge lies. It's actually, look, I think it's like if you talk about people who are impacted or oppressed, they have a level of right and fairness and reason to make an urgency about their lived experience. And I wouldn't ask them to not make it urgent and not to be directional about what it is that they want. What's important though is the language. Like, there's no skill in it. It's not like if someone hurts your feelings, the way you respond isn't like, do you know what, you've actually challenged me just there, and I feel like I need to reflect on what you just said, and I need a minute. And then that could be one way of saying, like, go fuck yourself. But people are saying go fuck yourself to each other and then wondering why nobody's listening. Because now all I can hear is go fuck yourself, you're a racist. And also, if you use words like you're a racist, even the idea of you are a racist is like almost like a permanency to it. Like, you are this thing. And that, in terms of depths of psychology, may be completely true. But as everybody knows about the people's subconsciouses and things they're not aware of, how present are you to being a racist? So if you call me something that I'm not aware of, it just sounds like a name.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know what anti-Semitism is, by the way. So if you call them anti-Semite, they're just like, what? No, I love Jewish people. And they don't even know that they can be it involuntarily. They don't understand that, certain assertions and things that we've been educated on will make the statement as anti-Semitism. And so I think it's really important that you have to be present of mind to know if you are or are not something. So just by calling people names doesn't work. I've changed my metric from good and bad, up and down, left and right, to just, does it work? When I asked that question, people got, but it's not, but basically I had an argument with a feminist. It wasn't even an argument. It was a kind conversation, but there was a point where I was just like, but is your method working? And she got really upset and said that I'm not allowed to have a viewpoint, which I'm not, by the way. But because we had created a container where we was having this dialogue, it was all right. In terms of how women choose to progress themselves, no. But the point is, as a counsel, as a consigliere in that particular moment, in that container, I was in a space where I had permission to ask the question.
But are you not allowed to have a viewpoint, but understand that it means...
No.
So I struggle with that. I'm going to be honest. I struggle with that.
You have to be invited in, but it's with anything though. Like, imagine if I just came in and was just like, bro, you see your set, yeah? You've done it all wrong. You'd be like, I didn't invite you to tell me about that. Like, you're just a guy yelling from outside. Did you help me pay for this? Did you help me build my shelves that my sign is on?
Yeah.
Like, so is that it's not whether you have the right. That's very centered in
Mhm.
yourself. If we're talking about the problem, they have to invite you in, or someone has to invite you into a conversation within that proximity. I can't just speak to women in whole and say this
Yeah,
is what I
no,
think.
I'm not saying like, you know, you're forcing your opinion on someone, but you said that you were having this conversation, but then you were told that you don't have an opinion. But I'm like, you're already in the conversation. Or have I got
No. So that's where it was incorrect, because she did invite me in and then just didn't like what I said,
right?
which is different.
Yeah.
But on a whole, I
Yeah.
just choose not to invite myself into
Yeah.
those spaces and be a part of those conversations. What I do think is really healthy, though, is that when you are invited in and people feel like there's a safety in what you're going to contribute, that you can use the right language and the right, connection points, then you're able to contribute, and they may listen to elements of what you're saying. But you can't just go into women and just tell them how you think and feel about their lives. It's literally none of your business, like verbatim.
So going back to Dope Black, obviously now you mentioned you've started the CIC. What's the aim now?
I think what basically happened is we were getting too big to operate almost like the equivalent of like making beats in our bedroom. We just got a bit too big. And I think there was an element of governance that was needed. There was an element of vision and direction that was needed. And as the person that started it all, I felt I was best placed in the short to midterm to play that role. And so my thing is about strategy and operational infrastructure to allow these things to happen. So the governance is just real, because like as a non-profit, you have to actually prove that you're working towards a mission, and any revenue is still taxable and all those types of things. Where does money go? How much money can people spend and take and, earn, and all these things. So we needed to create a team and a structure to do it. And then we launched it officially in June. We enrolled all of the spaces and all the existing community leaders to take part in it. So we've kept pretty much the same structure. Donald took over Dope Black Dads, and I've moved into this sort of chief executive position. But in many ways, it's like the community work is one strand, and then there's like the business part, which is a different strand. And although I oversee both, the community work is very much heavily led by the people who lead their communities. Like day to day, they say what their approach is and their plan is. We're there to add value to what it is that they're trying to ideate, and then give them as much resources and tools to deliver those things. And then from the business point of view, in terms of like administrating it, it's really important that we do that, collectively, because yes, we're very strong individually. So like if Dope Black Dads lean on a topic, it can get national exposure and we can drive the conversation. But then imagine if 5 communities can do that, and imagine if we come together on a particular issue, what we're able to do. And that's what the goal is to have that Thanos glove approach to any particular challenge that's impacting us, and then I wouldn't say crush it, but affect change in it, which I think is really important.
How many strands are there now?
There's 5. There'll be 6 in completion. So we have mums, dads, men, women, and the queer community. We'll be launching Disabled next year. There's actually someone that you reposted the other day, actually, who I was like, I'm so coming to get you. Is that your sister?
That's my sister.
Introduce us then. What are you trying to act like? What? Hey, bro, I followed that. I was like, I'm gonna come back to you. Hey, me and your sister, bro. She's gonna be a community leader, I hope. So yeah, like I feel like our goal is to represent all the intersections, and we're always listening to what those intersections are. We believe that the queer group has embodied a large group of people that we were desperately missing, and it was very unauthentic to not have a group with that was representing them. So I'm so glad. And Tali is the daughter of Kwame, and Kwame's in Dope Black Dad. So there's like this beautiful legacy, and that's what really makes it a community, is that. And then your sister will lead Disabled. I don't even know if she's even. I'm making it true now.
No, she so will.
Yeah, so this is what makes it really beautiful, because then like the interconnection of it all creates this like, and then anyone that I find that's queer anywhere I go, I'm like, meet Tali. And I'm just introducing them like constantly. And the same thing when I meet dads, it's like, come here. And I just think it's like, and if we all did that, we build this community. What the key thing is, though, is that the community is based on values, not just on blackness. And I think that's a really fundamental distinction. We can't engage with people who don't operate within the values. It just won't work. So I'm the protector of that as well.
Going back to what I was saying a minute ago about looking back and being like, oh, that's changed. Fast forward 10 years, and you're looking at what Dope Black has done. what does that look like to you? What does success look like in 10 years? Like, oh yeah, this is working.
Yeah, I think it's working right now, and it's important to make that into the present, because often I very much live in the future, and sometimes I just ignore. Like when you mentioned all the stuff in the beginning about my bio, half of it I'm not even present to. But then I think in 10 years' time, what that looks like is really it's our children leading this organization. And I think it's them doing their work experience, cutting their teeth in this type of work really early in a really clear framework. I think it's, we're trying to put money in Black families' hands and Black people's hands, and making sure that we're extracting and productizing and monetizing our experiences, our stories, our skills, and our talents. I think that's fundamentally important. I think there's keeping a community safe. So the feeling of safety is really, really important, because often when we look at each other, we antagonize each other with what we think we are. So I think if we do those two things, like lots of education and then putting money in each other's hands, and then creating an element of safety, like how my gran used to be a part of the Jamaican society and the Antiguan society, and they would all meet up and reconnect. And it just meant that there's loads of random things happen. There are affairs and babies, and that's human, that's humanity. That's not changing. You put beautiful, dope people together, they're going to start dating and getting married, and someone's going to do something. And we're not judging, but we're not judging those things. We prefer if you didn't, but we're not judging those things. What we're saying is there's a sense of belonging when you know who your community is. That allows you to then make more powerful decisions, preferably ones that don't involve the whole community you're setting on fire.
Do you know if there are already Dope Black babies yet? Because you've got Dope Black men, Dope Black... Is Dope Black Single still there?
No, we paused it because only women signed up. It was
always been the problem.
The event was 97 women and 3 men. And I'm going to be honest, the 3 men wouldn't have had a chance. They wouldn't have stood a chance. You know what it is? It's like the women that I knew, I was like, you're dope. This is great. I was getting really excited. I was like, yes, you, and you're coming. And then the dudes, there was no one I knew. It was just these random men signed up to it. And I was like, if I allow this event to go ahead, these women, the way they're going to have my head, I don't even want it. So we just pulled it. It's not worth it.
It's an interesting thing there, because I've noticed this pattern a lot whenever it comes to Black men and Black women, and you do some form of dating, whatever. But it's always, and this probably extends out to the wider community, but when it's us, you notice the numbers are really skewed. Why do you think that is? What do you think the barrier is for single Black men where they're like, nah, I'm not interested in that?
Testosterone, ego. Are any men ever single at any real point ever? You know what? I made this idea, I said this thing to some guys. I think every guy has a subs bench constantly. Just an eye. He's not actively maintaining it deeply, but he knows the second he's single, he knows where he's going. He knows who to call that day. He's probably called there a couple of times to check in. So how's everything going? Oh God, you're not happy in your relationship either. So I think men have never been taught to love uncontrollably. Mm-hmm. And so in that fear, they create safety nets. In those safety nets are usually 3 to 4 subs. In those 3 to 4 subs, they can be a catalyst for your marriage to break down or your relationship to break down anyway. I think people just keep their options open. Learning to love completely where you keep no hope alive anywhere else. Russell, I know you got 1 or 2. You know where to go. I'm not gonna get in trouble, bro. Do you know where to go?
Look, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm a spice. Yeah.
That corner of your phone, but where you does that, just dust it off.
I'm a spice. So even if I didn't, if I came back on the market, it's a wrap.
But what would you do though? Would you go on Tinder? Would you go on an app, or what would you do?
I am such an advocate for apps. So God forbid, if I was back on the market, who knows, after this I might be.
You thought about it, clearly, so it's cool.
No, I have thought about it. You know what it is? No, honestly, apps amaze me. So the idea, and my background used to be quite techie. So the idea of me jumping on a computer, taking an hour or a little bit more to really fill out this form to say this is who I am, and then allowing the algorithms to work, and then book the DMs are dropping in. I love the idea of that, and especially if I was in that position now, I don't have time to waste. So as opposed to you go somewhere, you like the look of somebody, you start talking to them a little bit, you're doing 1-2 messages, you're doing some phone calls, and then she says something like, I don't know, but just something that really doesn't fit in with your value base. That could be 2 months that you've just really just wasted.
Yeah.
Whereas if I can filter those out by the time we actually meet, then it's just like, is the chemistry there? Is that working? I don't understand why, and this goes for women as well that I've spoken to, single women as well, where there is still this thing of like, oh no, I'm not gonna do that. Again, when I was talking to Rickie, so he's recently got into a relationship, and that was through an app, and he's one of the first people I've just seen speak so confidently of like, yeah, it was on this, I think the app is called Hitch. It's like, I was on Hitch.
Hinge. Yeah.
See, look at me, I'm so old. Hinge.
Bruv, I learned it in Dope Black Singles, bro. Hinge is meant to be the new thing. This is where you find forevers. But it's good to know.
Well,
he's on there though. It's brave though, because that must have been peak for his DMs though.
He was. So he had got to the point where he was drained of. It was like
that sentence really well, please.
He was over the whole app thing. And then Melvin, in fact, encouraged him to go back on, and then he went back on, and he met the person that he's with now.
I think 35 to 45 is tough, man.
Yeah,
30 to 40 is tough because people make their mistakes, and people who started their relationships, had kids, and got married in their 20s. Are just in it right now and probably realizing they made a slight mistake, but figuring it out. So there's like that crew. And if you miss that window, trying to settle in the 30s is a bit of a madness. Like it's very, very competitive. It's very, and I think if you in the early part of that 30s, I think it's a lot easier to try and convert that into something. Like one of my friends just got mutual people that I know got engaged the other day, and they're in their early 30s, maybe 33. But I think that post that point, there's a window where you just don't. It's very difficult, and then in like mid 40s onwards, you can start finding these older life partners, but you miss the whole children element. So it's very, very difficult, man. I would love Dope Black Singles to be a thing, but I think the way we just got to do it is keep Dope Black people around, and then they will find themselves. Yeah. There was one of our sharing calls where some woman was like, I slid in the DMs with like 3 men on this Zoom call, and I was like, right, okay,
it's happening. It's happening.
Do it.
You know what? I've got a confession, man. I've never been on a sharing call.
I noticed. It's cool. I see things, There it is. I'm like the Oracle guy with half the intelligence, though. Just like I see it all.
For the first few, there was something else, and then, if I'm being totally honest, when the last month or so, there was like, oh, you could do the call tonight. You could do the call tonight. But there was it's almost like I became scared of being in the space, which is weird, and I don't know why, because I'm in the groups and whatnot. So it's weird, but so I told him, because when I saw it was the last one for the year, I said, you know what, whatever thing is 2021, the first one back, I will be there.
This is why it needs to be called a brave space. It's not really a safe space, it's a brave space, because it just takes a lot to stand in there and just shed yourself like in front of people. The good thing is that when the people you're sharing with have values, and so they're not weaponizing it against you down the line. They're not using it to like send a text to your wife and be like, look at his phone. He's just like, you can just say where you're at. And I think because we don't have many spaces that are that authentic anyway, like I realized there's a point where I just stopped loading my wife with everything that came in my head, because the poor woman was just like, let me breathe. let me recover from the last thought that you have.
Yeah. Now, I think that's an interesting thing that you said there about not overloading your wife with all of the stuff in your head, because I think sometimes we abuse that, because
we do. You're
there with that person, and actually not everything that goes on inside here you have
for her. Do you know who my exec team is right now? This is the Marvyn Harrison exec team. Okay, I have a medium who's amazing, by the way, like amazing.
You might have to share the details. I used to have one, and she was phenomenal, and then she
Listen, I've sent her to like 15 people right now. Like I'm not playing. I send it as gifts,
and then I'm going to tell you the story about my medium. But say you're
okay, cool. So I have my medium. I have my psychologist, who's my consigliere. So every time I'm challenged, she just tells me where the straight in line is. So I just tell her what's going on. She goes, Marvyn, what you're doing here is da 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 da. And I'm like, this is what you're hiding from. This is what's not happening. This is why it's not working. So that's important. Then I have my like regular therapist who I speak to every Thursday, and we just have conversations. It's a slightly less of the psychologist is the real, it's like having a war strategist. It's not even war. That's, it's a life strategist. And then the medium is just someone just to take you to another frequency. And then the therapist just every week just to go in and unload, share.
I like that,
It's an incredible team, man. I love them all. I think I've told them all I love them in the last 6 weeks. They're just like, thank you, Marvyn. I think I love you, because without you, I don't think life would be the same.
That's actually, I may jack that. As I said, so going back to, I think it was 2011. I was at work. I'm sitting in the office. I come in from lunch, and one of my colleagues is talking about this medium. She refers to herself as a sentient that her mum had seen. And at that point in life, you can't come and talk to me about that nonsense. Like, I'm not talking that. No. Sat down and I'm listening, and there was just something, and I've got better over the years at listening to this voice. So this voice just came and was like, you need to take the number. And I just went, pass me the number, please. And my colleague looked at me like, what? Because she knows I'm not that guy. So I took the number, I called this woman, I went to go and meet her. It is, when I am on my deathbed and I look back on my life, this is one of the most pivotal moments in my life, seeing this woman. So we went in, and she just, I think all of the lies that I'd been telling myself, all of the things that I was unsure about, she laid me bare, and she just, by the things she told me and the things she showed me, it really gave me like, okay, I'm ready to go again. That chapter's over. I'm ready to go again. And I never told Nana. So Nana is the opposite of me. So Nana has always and is always open to that. So I left this woman. I came back to we were living in Barking at the time. I came back to the flat. I walked in and I was like, sit down, I've got something to tell you. And she's like, and then I just apologized for all of the shitty things that I had did, but didn't really, you always know when you're doing it, but didn't really have control of it. And then I explained to her that I had been to see this woman, and her jaw literally dropped, because she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. And so I went to see this woman. Off the back of me seeing this woman, probably about 20 of our friends have now went afterwards to go and see this woman, because it was literally just such, she was brilliant. She was brilliant. But,
I think what happened is someone put you in a safe environment. Someone saw you and was able to read the energy that you were emitting at the time. And I think often, and especially like with me, and I've realized this now, is that people don't actually see me as a person. It's become a really common thing, especially this year. And I think people just see me as like an alien, like someone who does stuff. And so every now and again, someone just throws a rock at my head. And I'm just like, whoa, like I was minding my business. And then they just throw a rock at me. And then they'll be like, you yelled at me for throwing a rock at you. I just like, or they won't even acknowledge the rock. They'll be like, you yelled at me. And I'm like, no, but you threw a rock. I was going somewhere. I get into this thing all the time. And I think when someone sees you, because this is what she did, like she was just like, I can see that you're fighting your integrity versus what you know is right. And I just sat there and I was like, oh, you've got me. And I thought she was Googling and shit. Because like there's certain times, like when I created my values in the way I choose to be, it's I when I'm doing it unimpeded, it's the easiest thing. I'm like, yeah, I just make choices. I choose this, I choose that, I do this way. This is fun. And I can create all these things. The second somebody comes at me, what I struggle with is not going into my complaints, not being like, poor me. I really struggle with it. And it just reminds me of being 16. And I think this is the legacy of like growing up in an estate in Hackney, where if someone did something to you, you just had to go get them. Because it was life or death. It was just like, if you don't get them and quell it and stop it and have that 5-minute fade or whatever it is, it will continue and escalate. So in my mind, my body returns to that every time people throw rocks at my head. And so I become something. That's something that I got to get control over. But what's more important is I've got to be able to take punches. Did you watch Will Smith and Janet Hubert?
Yeah.
His inability to take punches, even in that moment at the big age that he is, stopped him from fully taking in the impact of what he had done. And this is Will Smith, by the way.
Yeah.
This is not a small like guy that has no idea. He still couldn't do it. Like I saw him like, well, tell me what happened for you over those years. He couldn't just give and then take the punches and then just allow her the platform to do it. He was still fighting. That's similar to me. As much as I'm aware, it's so hard to be that guy. So hard.
That's interesting. No, I clocked that when I was watching it. Just that, I think with Will, his eyes speak so much, and so you saw it in his eyes immediately, that defensiveness, and that block, and then kind of bringing it back to her when then that was his moment to really own it, I guess. But yeah, he struggled with that. But no, I understand.
I think that's his child. That's his child speaking. Every time that look, that glaze is his child speaking. And I think when you know it and you're present to it, it's hard to do it in a moment, but we can see it. Like, that's where you know the work is. So as evolved as he is, like he still hasn't completed his childhood, because it comes out of him in such a way. Every time you challenge him in a particular way. And his understanding is really amazing. But this is where this is why therapy isn't always the complete answer, because what therapy will say is they'll tell you the why, and they'll pull up the why for you, and you remember them, and you're like, oh, actually, it wasn't like that. But you still got to program it. There's another level on top of it, which is about completion. And there are practices, some people do it, where they make you close your eyes, recreate, see yourself in that time, and you can hug yourself, tell yourself it's going to be okay, and all that kind of stuff. That stuff does work really well. But to fully complete with it is a long process. And for him, it's still really apparent. But I don't judge it, because, even the little bit of work I've done is painful as hell, man. It's like having a all-day tattoo. That's what it feels like.
What do you think has made you most vulnerable from all the work that you've done?
I think understanding my rage. Like, I was very angry in school, like very angry. And what I realized is that I lost my voice as a child. And so when people accuse me of things, I wouldn't rest. Like, the idea of you accusing me of something that I know I didn't do is not, it takes ages for me to settle for it. And that's my child speaking. That's my child being like, no, listen to me, because what I was doing was. And what used to happen often, you have a house full of 4 kids and anything goes wrong. And then there's a season where it was just like everything was Marvyn. Just like the vase broke, someone drew in the window, the door was left open, it must have been Marvyn. And I think after a while, just being told that I did stuff that in my mind I either didn't do or didn't believe I did intentionally, and had the weight of like what it meant. Like, you left the door open so someone could have come in the house and robbed us and, raped me in my bed. And you're just like, but you get that because that's what, our parents used to talk like. But at the time I was like, I clearly didn't want to do that. And so that's my work to complete it. So I think my understanding where my anger came from, was really, really powerful. And I just don't feel anywhere near as angry as I historically did. But also, I just think just having children makes you vulnerable. I think having people you love and care about, trying to disconnect from what they do from what you feel love is really important. I think we've always been taught that love is like very conceptual, and people love you. So that means something. Like, they do this because they love you. And I think love is just an experience. Like, when they do the thing that feels like love, that's the experience of love, not they love you so constantly in this like line of love they just always, they always support you, give you stuff, listen to you, care about what you have to say, and tickle you. It's like sometimes it's just like the experience of love just might be more frequent with a person, or it could just be like this for like 6 months, and then it's like this for like the later on. And as long as the experience is there, you can accept that it may not be as frequent. But for me, I want love as an experience from everywhere. That's what my thing is. And if I don't experience love, I can choose not to invest my time in it.
Fair enough. Do you see, like I'm seeing it a lot more often in myself, both the good and the bad, of traits of my parents in me. Do you see that a lot in yourself and in your parenting?
I see the emotions in from my mum. My mum was just like, she's incredible. Like, you know, we all know our mum's incredible, but she was like the center of not only our house, but the family. And our house was the center hub for everyone, to interconnection for everyone to come in. And she was always having people around. I think that's where I get my like social elements from. But I think the emotion at times where she was challenged with raising all four of us and being impacted by life, by the way. So I've said before that like my mum, I thought she was the best thing. She had the best experience ever. She was always happy, always dancing, always giving, always like, I just thought she was amazing. But then my older brother and sister have told me at times things and sacrifices that she's made for us. And I wasn't even really present to it because I just remember the joy. But I do think when she was challenged, I think that how she reacted to things is something that I've picked up on. And I'm very emotional, like very, very emotional. Stoicism is not something that, you know, there's points where I am, but if you impact me in 2-3 ways, you know, it's an all out, it's an all out war. Like I want, you know, I'm like, I'm not having it. I think you're now just being aggressive to me. So my body wants to protect myself, and that's how I would do it. And I think that's the thing that I see in myself, my mum, the most. But I also see the kindness, the like thoughtfulness, the reflection. My mum was just incredibly kind and giving. And I think that, you know, the balancedness is that I never really thought I was kind. People now are telling me that they feel like I'm kind, but that was another part of my story, that I wasn't kind or lovable in that way.
What's been your defining moment so far?
It's a tough one because I don't think I'll go look at life in that way. I think there's just been really pivotal moments, like meeting Carl Ramsey, for example. It's a real pivotal moment.
I saw the T-Hop flyer earlier on today.
Mad.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't me hugging a woman on the front of it, though, just to be clear.
Was that not you? Because that really looked like you.
No, there's a guy that I worked with this guy in Waitrose, and he was clear that he made it clear I was the second best looking guy at that workplace. He's a very good looking dude called Thomas. And I never forget, like, I saw him and I was like, come take these pictures. But I wore the same jumper. So in the car, that's me.
Okay.
But he's the one hugging the other attractive woman. So I got relegated. But it's cool. It's fine. We're friends now.
Cool.
But yeah, so like Carl was a pivotal moment. I think my best friend who made me go to university was a pivotal moment because I just wanted to work in Sainsbury's. So without him being competitive with me, because he supported Liverpool, I supported Arsenal. I actually supported Leeds at the time. That's a whole another story. But we supported teams. Yeah, I know. We supported teams, and like football was a thing, and like women were a thing. And he said he was going to university because his mum said, you're going to university. And I was like, I can go to university. So I applied, and then, you know, I look at that, and I got to university, and someone was like, I'm going to go to this amazing like thing. And then my other friend at the time, who was very close, Daniel, was like, I'm going to go to this thing. I was like, I'm going to come to this thing. I'm smart enough to go. So I turn up and it's verbal intercourse. There's just moments where those decisions put me in spaces that I was able to, you know, be myself. And I found a home in each of those places.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Probably to go to Landmark.
Okay.
Do you know why? Because I think I was ready and it was timely. Like, you know, we talked about those moments earlier, about moments where I was able to, you know, make something or be somewhere. I think that point I was highly functioning, but I was still operating off of just ideas. It wasn't locked into a framework. It was just kind of like, oh, you must be kind to people and you must be nice to, and I was just doing way too much. And then I was creating behaviors. So like, because I felt like I wasn't perceived as kind or loving, I would perform those acts at great cost time and financial challenges. And then when I wasn't responded to as a loving person, or if they saw another side of me that wasn't loving, they would be so confused. And then they would be like, you are the worst person I've ever met. Because I was performing it. I was going, here's my performance, love. Hey, look, I love you. And then like, there was no true affinity. And so what I had to do is just be able to show my full character. This is why I will always say the parts where I'm fallible. Like I just say it because it's authentic. There are many, many areas, my communication, sometimes I'll decide that this is what I'm going to go do and go and do it. And I don't take people with me. I'm just like, I'm going to do this now. And people will be like, we just caught up with the other thing you did. And I'm like, no, but I've seen what this is and I want to go here. So my communication is really, really bad. So it causes a lot of problems, which is why then the perception of me matters, because that's what they're responding to. So I don't necessarily manage the perception, but I have to be aware that their perception won't be what I actually am. It will be based on my likeness or, my height, the way I speak, whatever, all those things. And they'll create an image and be like, Marvyn is this. And it's happened recently. And I've had to I've meditated my Kidulthood off just to really be at peace with the miscommunication as to what's happened and why, and just accept they were never going to be okay with me. Like it was never going to be okay. And it's happened and there's nothing I can do about it at all. And there's something in that I think is bringing me peace. Just acceptance that I may not be seen as the person that I believe I am.
So flipping it, what advice would you give to yourself at 16?
To be honest, I think if I found that approach earlier, it would have saved me a lot of friction. So,
but would you have been open to it at 16?
No, I would, because that's how I found Carl. Is just and stuck to him because he was providing me information that I just couldn't access.
Yeah,
and I've always looked for it, and I knew it wasn't religion. I knew it wasn't about praying and just in the way that it was presented. But what no one never told me is that, I suppose it's like existentialism, is what you can consider is that you are, even spiritually, you are, just say, I'm a spirit. I'm not a person. I'm a spirit. So the things that happen to this person, this body, is okay. It doesn't mean what I make it mean. And then in terms of what I want to go out and create, I create from the foundation of what type of person must I be in every situation. So what parents normally do is they teach their children how to navigate situations. So when you go to school, do this, do this, do this. When you're at jobs, do this, do this, do this. When you're at the family, do. And then what you do is you just create these cages as to what's possible. But if you just say in all the scenarios in your life, loving, authentic, man of your word, integrity, powerful, you then create a way to be in every scenario. And all they got to do is ask themselves, am I being loving at this point? Am I being powerful? Am I being authentic? If this answer is yes, then what you are doing is fine, even if it's impacting people. That's the foundations that you are signing up to, that you are going to say, I'm happy if I'm being those things. And if it really doesn't work for an extended period of time, you can reflect and adjust some of the language in which you choose to apply to your values. I think that's that understanding is the only thing that's made sense. Everything else has been way too painful, way too hard, way too challenging, way so unworkable, and has left me I suppose my measurement of success is do I go home and think about it at night? And if I do, then I know something isn't working.
I like that. I'm gonna jack that. I think that's...
You went, bruv. You went to the thing. You were there.
I did. Landmark was interesting for me because Landmark was, Landmark was another really pivotal moment in my life. If you had spoken to me before Landmark and you had spoken, and I had spoken about my dad, I would have spoken in terms of, my dad was cool, my dad passed away, but I've grieved, I'm over it. And then if that went deeper, I would say that probably my brother, my sister, my mum, they're still kind of in it. And then I went to Landmark, and my mentor, he told me to go. He forced me to go, and I went just because he asked me. I didn't want to go. I had no interest in it. And I went and sat in that first meeting. And I kind of randomly just found myself opening up in this room full of people.
It's just like a train carriage, isn't it? It's like
Right.
a train carriage of random people sharing their deepest challenges.
It's very weird. So I signed up, and then on that first day, when I turned up, I said to myself, I'm going to go sit right at the back of the room, because I still wasn't on board. So I was like, I'm here because this person said that I should do it, and I respect this person, but I'm not really on it. And so I went in, I said, I'm going to the back of the room, and I'll observe. But when I got there, all the seats were taken up, and the only seat that was available was near the front. So I'm there, a lady gets up, and she talks about why she's there. And it's quite, well, not even quite, it's very emotional. She speaks about losing her son and then the relationship she has with another son. And I'm listening thinking, okay, if I was to get up and speak, what am I going to talk about? Because literally at the time, I felt the reason why I was there was because I felt I had lost my way a little bit. So I, throughout my 20s and my early 30s, I was doing so much, meant to excel, this, that, and the other. And then everything just felt like it just kind of petered off. Like there was a moment where I was like, oh, my acting's really going to blow. And then everything just petered off. And so I felt like I was trying to find who I was supposed to be. And so I got up and I spoke on the mic. And those were all of the things that I said. And then this guy just started asking me questions.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, because I didn't go there thinking about my dad. And before I knew it, I'm standing in a room of over 100 people, bawling this microphone, talking about the last moments that I had with my dad. And like the whole kind of thing behind Landmark in terms of creating a story. And so I'm telling them the story of how my dad passed away. And he kept challenging me and telling me, no, that's not what happened. And then the ignorant part of my brain is like, who the fuck's he talking to? Like,
Your language was revealing.
And then I got it. And it was that weekend for me did so much in terms of just freeing up that part of my life. I remember the next morning, I got up, I had my bath, and I was showering, and I kind of stood up, and I physically felt lighter. Like I was like, wow, that was, And then, so I did the course, and then I was going to go do the advanced course. And I think this is just who I am, is I then just, in the same way with the call, I just put myself out of it. And then,
how have you found that your inner voice is still active? Where you are at with the inner voice?
Still active. I feel like your inner voice doesn't go anywhere. It's a matter of being able to know when to listen and when not to listen. And so for me, I'm much better at turning my voice off when it's saying bullshit. So when it's saying you can't do this, or you can't do that, or why are you here, or if I have feelings of imposter syndrome, which I do a lot, I am able to be like, that's that voice. You can fuck. I'm not listening to you. And then I might need to take a moment. So if I'm being honest, even yesterday was a kind of day where I had all of my to-do list, but I just wasn't there, I think, and I just needed to kind of take the day. Okay, I'll wake up today, let me go, let me do it again. But I think I've got better.
The thing about, because what I started doing is using Landmark to, it was like the teaching was so clear to me that I really struggled when people were telling me stories. I could hear them.
Yeah.
And it made me really aware that what they're saying is not authentic. It's not coming from a true place. And so even now, when people challenge me, And this is a problem because then you can't hold me to account for anything, because it may be true. They just don't have the skill to say it without the story.
Yeah.
But it was starting to turn me into a bit of an arsehole, just because I would see what they're saying was inauthentic and then I'll just dismiss it. Like, cool, thank you. Or I'd be like, well, that's a story, isn't it? That's like, that can't be true. What you're telling me is that you were a dove and you were saving children, flying around, freeing people from like fake prison. And then I'm an eagle and I came and I just swooped down out of nowhere and I destroyed you. Well, that's not true, is it? So the whole thing's not true. And I think just sometimes like weaponizing the skills that you develop is, you know, you can use them. And I just got to realize, and this is something that I was talking to someone out here in Joburg actually about, they're particularly well known here. And then they were talking to me about just the challenge that their kids were facing in school and just some of the things that were happening for them. And one of the things they said was just like, they really struggle with people when they hold them in this light and don't see them. And I was like, but the thing is, you have to learn to take the punches because you can't punch down. Like, going to people who are impacted or don't have as much as you, whether it's right or wrong, and telling them that they don't understand how hard you work, it just doesn't land. When they realize how much you get paid for an hour or 2 hours worth or something, or how much you get paid to do a piece of content or your day rate or whatever, they just disconnect with you as the same type of person as them immediately. So you can't tell them how hard it is for you and you hurt too, and they just don't hear you. Rightly or wrongly, they just don't. So you got to learn to not punch down, really. When people are challenged, let them be challenged. And that's why you have to have a higher evolved understanding of yourself, so that you don't start punching people back and being like, no, I'm right. Because if you're going to be right, you will always get stuck in that and you will start fighting things that don't need to be fought. You can just let some things go. Like, if they think you're something and you're not, you just got to create an element of distance. And so I think that's something that we all need to learn, is like actually create a bit of space rather than be in the thing that keeps you challenged. But yeah, to be honest, I think the main thing is that I ask people to go. I don't think everyone has to live it to the nth degree of their life. I think it's worked for me in a particular way. It's given me clarity on a framework of what to do. When I realize I'm not doing something right and I speak to my coach, I know exactly what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
So I stay out of my complaints. I try not to gossip. All those things keep me from my voice being active, and then it creates those feelings that aren't really there. And I use the test of physicalness as well or test of reality, that they give you, which is super important.
Did you do the advanced course?
Yeah, I did that this year. It was difficult because it was online, but the one thing I took from it is the test of reality is actually if you can touch it and if someone says it, everything else isn't real. And that, you know, really, because even the perception of what you think is real, how far this laptop is away from me is a perception. How actual far it is until I touch it, I don't know. And so, and even the measurement of it in the number isn't necessarily essential. But when I know it's there, it's when I touch it, then that's real, cool. And then when I say it, then that's real. If I think it, nothing's happened. and dividing that is really, really important.
Bro, thank you.
No worries, man. I'm glad I was the third most important person in your life to come and do this.
You never let me finish the story. What happened? What it was is because I know that you're so busy, Dope Black, beloved. I was like, in order for me to have his time, I need to get other people's time so that he can see it's worth it, and then get involved.
Can I just do the landmark on you? Yeah, test of reality and what you just said though.
All of what I said was real. All of what I said was real.
This is why I hate fucking loud, because it can clear you out, bruv. None of that was real. If you ask me to do anything, as long as I can keep my clothes on, I'm coming. That's my test of reality with you, bruv. Can I keep my clothes on?
You could always keep your clothes on. That's very, it's encouraged. But no, I always appreciate you taking time out for me though. I do appreciate that. So when are you?
Close your podcast for you?
Pardon?
Can I close your podcast for you?
You're gonna close it for me. I just wanted to ask you quickly, when are you coming back?
To you?
South Africa.
Oh, what, to London? Bro, I'm trying to get my family out here, bro. I told you that you can get a house help and a giant yard and a car. anywhere near London. It's cheaper than Essex even being here. So, yeah, I don't know. Who knows, man? Right now it's January something, but it may not be that.
Hopefully, I'll join you out there, if not somewhere on the continent.
Bruv, come. I'm actually looking at Ghana right now because I sneakily might head out on Christmas Day. So I'll let you know.
I'm gonna head out to Ghana in the new year, so we'll see. Okay, well, close it off for me, please.
Cool. One of the things that Nee doesn't tell people, and one of the things that he hides behind by presenting this podcast, is that he is one of the most incredible, warm and transformative human beings that I've ever met. And he has set the benchmark for masculinity and humanity to me in many, many ways, especially over the last 19 years. So as much as he is hosting this podcast, having conversations with me, what you're present to is actually to hear someone up close and hear their thoughts and their journey from an incredible human being, a really good example of man. So thank you so much for inviting me in. And please continue to do this, man, because I did podcasts for 2.5 years and I really, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. You know what? You really caught me off there because I really thought you was going to come with some jokes. So I'm actually really touched. Thank you for that. Yeah, you really caught me off guard.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you.